everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our bizarre and unusual world. So today I'm going to be diving into a famous landmark that I saw mentioned on the Travel Channel the other day, and I decided that I needed to feature it in this series. So today I'm going to be talking all about Lunar Lake. So this location is a very interesting lake, both in Hindu mythology, scientifically, and just in general, it's a very interesting location. This lake is surrounded by lush greenery. The lake is roughly 3,900 feet in diameter and around 490 feet in depth. It also has quite a green tint to it, partially from some of the algae that grows in this lake and other very interesting features to the Lunar Lake. So where exactly is this lake located? So the Lunar Lake is located in the Buldhana district in Maharashtra, and that's in India. So the history of this lake goes back for centuries, from its creation to the stories and legends surrounding this specific area to more modern times where there was scientific research done on what makes this lake so different. So it is safe to say that the who and the when of Lunar Lake is spread across years of history. There are some spiritual and religious texts that mention this specific location and the lake in around 1600 to 1500 BC. One scripture from the Enochberry document mentions this location as a great place for making soap and glass. And in the 9th century, there were actually temples built around this lake for various reasons. There are 10 temples in total. Some of them are still standing and have stood against the test of time, if you will, and some of them are in ruins because they haven't really been kept up on, obviously. There are multiple Shiv temples created by the Kalukaya dynasty. There's one temple that is filled with bats today. There's a Rama temple. There's one with a lot of different carvings, some of which the carvings are more adult themed than other types of, family friendly carvings. There are different rock patterns, just more in general religious temples used for worship, and a lot of just other different features and meanings behind these 10 different temples that surround the Lunar Lake. There is one of the temples that actually has fresh water running through it, and a lot of people will travel to this specific temple to bathe in this fresh water. The first European to visit this location wasn't until about 1823, so there is a lot of history that happened way before that surrounding this area, the lakes, the temples, all of it. So what is so special about this lake? From a mythology standpoint to more of a scientific look, what makes the Lunar Lake so special? There are a few different legends surrounding this lake. One of them suggested that the water within this lake would have healing properties. Another more popular legend around the creation of this lake is suggested that it was created after sending a demon to the underworld. The Skanda Purana legend says that a demon named Lonar was basically tormenting the local people and would even challenge their gods. One day, a young boy faced him, and this boy was secretly Lord Vishnu. The demon's destruction is suggested to have caused this crater-like area that is now Lunar Lake. And people even say that the lake is basically the demon's den of where he was sent to after his destruction, basically. The water mixed with the demon's blood is why the lake is so murky, and some of the different colors and substances within the lake is said to represent the decaying flesh of the demon. This legend is the more popular one, and Lunar Lake was specifically named after this demon and that legend. So jumping to more modern times, why exactly did scientists want to look into this lake? So in about the 1960s, geologists were looking at this lake and the area that it was located in. They suggested that this lake was a volcanic basalt rock that was basically created during an eruption from 65 million years ago. The lake did sit in a volcanic plain, and some of the surrounding substances made them believe that this theory was accurate, and that is what created this lake. However, further analysis actually proved that incorrect in about 1973. Of course, more research was done, and it was discovered that the water levels within this lake are much different than your standard lake. When you compare it to other lakes in India, the Lonar Lake is much different. For example, there is actually no vegetation that grows along the muddy banks of this lake. To get to the trees, you have to go back a bit from the water. And just some of the other interesting looks and parts of this location had a lot of different scientists looking at it and writing up reports. One very scientific-y report says, "The saline deposits obtained from the lake are rather of an exceptional nature. Compared with most of the famous salt lakes in India, it will be seen that whereas the Lonar, the carbonates of soda are the most important. In the case of other lakes, the deposits of sodium chloride or common salt give the lake its value. The modes of formation are also entirely different, and it is practically certain that the Lonar salts are derived from an unknown source in the bed of the lake. It is true that the water is continually flowing into the lake, and that except by evaporation there is no loss. The main feeder stream could not, however, supply this amount of alkali, nor could the other smaller supplies coming in during the rains, for all sides of the lake vegetation is abundant, particularly where the main stream flows continuously. Were any quality of alkali present in this water, vegetation would suffer considerably, and with exceptions of a few varieties of plants, eventually die out entirely. The salts collected from this lake vary in their nature and composition, and from their appearance are easily separated by men accustomed to handling them. Various names are given to some of 5 or 6 main varieties, but there is no fixed line between one salt and another, their compositions depending upon the period and condition of the crystallization. At the present time, large quantity of these salts are lying on the shores of the lake." So in more basic terms, the substances and levels of this lake are very different compared to other lakes. Also, they think that the salts within this water are coming from some unknown substance at the bottom of this lake. Because water does flow into this lake from the various streams or rainfall, it suggests that that is not the source of the salt, because the greenery and the lush surroundings are perfectly fine. If they were dealing with that level of salt content, the trees and the plants would not be growing as well. And in some cases, they would be dying off. So the streams are not where these levels are coming from. It is highly suggested that whatever these levels are coming from is from the bottom of the lake and have probably been there for a very long time. From various research done on the Lonar Lake, it is pretty much confirmed that this was created when a huge meteorite crashed into Earth. And this created the crater, what is now the Lonar Lake. This would have happened around 35,000 to 50,000 years ago. Knowing that a meteor caused this could help us understand more of the lake's ecosystem and why exactly it has both saline and alkaline levels within the water, and how exactly these different levels are separated throughout the lake. The chemical characteristics of this lake show 2 different regions that do not mix. An outer neutral area, which is basically a pH 7, and then an inner alkaline, which is a pH 11. There are also interesting things about the surrounding areas. As I said, the trees grow fine further back from the lake, but it actually has like rings of species of trees. So one ring around the lake is one specific type of tree, and then the next ring is a different type of tree. It's very interesting. They don't really mix together. There's the specific rings around the lake. So this lake is basically just like a huge impact hole. And when you look at it, you could definitely see how it looks like a crater. It looks like the aftermath of a meteorite hitting onto the planet. It is actually the only hypervelocity impact crater and/or lake in the whole world. Multiple methods have been done to research and detect exactly how old this crater is or when the meteorite would have hit, just further adding to the research of this lake's origin. There are also bits and parts of mascanalite found in the area, which is basically a glassy type substance that is found on some meteorites. Also, some studies suggest that there is some sort of a magnetic bacteria within this lake, kind of suggesting an extremophile, which is basically a microorganism that lives in conditions of either extreme temperature, acidity, alkalinity, or chemical concentration. Now, this specific magnetic bacteria could have easily come from the meteor itself and is basically left behind substances in the lake. With that being said, some researchers and people have related these microorganisms to the idea of aliens. You know, whatever came along on this meteor, whether that be creature, substance, whatever you want to say. Some people relate it to aliens. And then they take a step further and suggest our ancestors related to these microorganisms that would have come along with this meteor and or this alien species. So it kind of depends on where you want to look at that, if our ancestors came from this meteor. And if so, is this lake like our main evidence for where these species came from? What's at the bottom of the lake? So like I said, there's a lot of history surrounding the Lonar Lake. You have the legends of the demon being defeated and thrown to the den, which is now the lake. Then you go to the 60s where they thought that it was because of a volcano eruption. And then into the 70s where they discovered that it was a meteor crash. And that's where some of those different levels and the huge crater came from that is now the lake. So how is the lake today? Well, with most of nature on our planet, unfortunately, different toxic chemicals and things are threatening the surrounding areas, including this lake. Things like fertilizers and pesticides do run off into the surrounding streams that eventually feed into this lake. The nearby water sources are also used for things like bathing or washing things, other domestic purposes, and that once more goes into the stream and leads into the lake. There are different more illegal pollution things that are affecting the ecosystem around it, including the water itself and the lake and all of its levels of fun scientificness, as well as humans who are performing illegal excavations that disturb the lake and the underground water source for it. So it is a very big geological landmark, especially with how different it is from all other lakes and the type of crater it is. And unfortunately, over time, it is being ruined and destroyed because of how we take care of this planet, basically. So what do you guys think about the Lonar Lake? Had you ever heard of this landmark before? Did you know the legend or the history behind it? Did you know about any of the scientific research with it? Whether that be the different pH levels, the different water, the magnetic substances within it? Do you think that any sort of alien species rode in on the meteor and crashed onto Earth? I would love to hear what you guys think. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.